The ballroom shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their light dancing across the polished marble floors. Laughter and the clink of champagne glasses filled the air, a symphony of celebration for my son's wedding. I, Eleanor Grayson, stood at the edge of the crowd, my heart swelling with pride and a touch of bittersweet nostalgia. At 72, I had seen many milestones, but watching my only son, William, marry was a moment I had dreamed of for decades. My cream-colored couture gown, a $50,000 masterpiece of silk and lace, hugged my frame with timeless elegance, its intricate beadwork catching the light with every step. I felt like a queen, not just because of the dress, but because of the love and legacy I had built. William, with his father's kind eyes and my stubborn spirit, stood beside his bride, Claire. She was radiant in her white gown, her auburn hair cascading in soft waves. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of unease that I couldn't quite place. I dismissed it as nerves. Weddings, after all, were a whirlwind of emotion. I raised my glass, ready to toast the couple, when Claire's gaze locked onto mine. For a moment, the room seemed to still. Then, with a deliberate flick of her wrist, she tossed her glass of red wine across my dress. The crowd gasped. The deep crimson liquid bloomed across the cream fabric, seeping into the delicate lace like blood on snow. My breath caught, not from the ruin of the dress, but from the malice in Claire's eyes. This was no accident. The room buzzed with whispers as I stood frozen, the weight of her act sinking in. William rushed to my side, his face a mix of shock and fury. "Mother, are you okay?" he whispered, his hand steadying me. I forced a smile, though my heart pounded. "I'm fine, darling. Just a little spill." But inside, I was reeling. Claire's smirk lingered as she turned away, playing the flustered bride to the crowd's sympathy. Why? I wondered. What had I done to deserve this? I had welcomed her into our family with open arms, shared stories of William's childhood, and offered her my late husband's heirloom ring as a gesture of trust. Yet here she was, humiliating me on one of the most sacred days of our lives. As the evening wore on, I moved through the reception with practiced grace, ignoring the pitying glances and the stain that marked me. Claire avoided me, her laughter ringing a little too loud as she danced with William. But I noticed the way she watched me, her eyes glinting with something akin to triumph. I wasn't a woman to be trifled with, though. Decades of navigating boardrooms and raising a family had taught me resilience and the art of subtle, devastating retribution. By the time the cake was cut, I had a plan. Not one born of spite, but of justice. Claire had underestimated me, thinking age had dulled my sharpness. She was wrong. I slipped away to the bridal suite, where I knew she kept her phony, a device she was rarely without. A quick glance confirmed my suspicions, messages to a friend, gloating about putting the old hag in her place with the wine stunt. My heart sank, but my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about a dress. It was about respect, family, and the boundaries she had crossed. I returned to the reception, my smile unwavering. William caught my eye, his brow furrowed with concern. "Mother, you don't have to stay," he said softly. "I'll handle Claire." I patted his cheek, my voice steady. "No, my love. This is your day. Let me handle this." He nodded, trusting me as he always had. I felt a pang of guilt for what I was about to do, but Claire had drawn first blood. As the night drew to a close, I approached the microphone for my toast. The room quieted, all eyes on me, Eleanor Grayson, the matriarch, the woman in the ruined dress. I raised my glass, my voice clear and warm. To William and Claire, I began. May your love be as enduring as the family we've built. The crowd murmured approval. But I wasn't done. And to Claire, I continued, my gaze locking with hers. May you learn that actions have consequences. And love requires respect. The room stilled. Claire's smile faltered, her eyes darting nervously. I didn't need to say more. The message was clear. I saw her. And I wasn't the frail old woman she thought she could humiliate. As the applause rose, I stepped back, my heart steady. The real payback was yet to come, and it would be far more than a stained dress. The next morning, the wedding's glow had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the Grayson family estate. I sat in my study, the stained dress carefully draped over a chair, a reminder of Claire's audacity. The fabric was ruined, but its cost was the least of my concerns. What stung was the betrayal. I had spent months welcoming Claire, sharing family recipes, and even gifting her my late mother's pearl earrings for the wedding. Yet she had chosen to mark her entry into our family with cruelty. I sipped my tea, the porcelain cup warm against my hands, and replayed the night's events. The messages on Claire's phone had revealed more than just her disdain for me. There were hints of deeper resentment, comments about Eleanor's control over William, her fear that I'd overshadow her in his life. It was laughable. Really. I had stepped back to give them space, encouraging William to build his own family. But Claire saw me as a threat, and the wine was her way of asserting dominance. I wasn't one to dwell on hurt, though. Action was my language. I called my old friend, Margaret, a lawyer with a knack for discreet investigations. I need you to look into Claire, I said, keeping my voice calm. Nothing invasive. Just context. Margaret understood immediately. By noon, she had preliminary findings. Claire had a history of small, calculated cruelties, colleagues sidelined, friends ghosted when they no longer served her. It wasn't a pattern of malice so much as ambition, a need to control her narrative. The wine wasn't just personal. It was strategic. William arrived that afternoon, his face drawn. Mother, I'm so sorry, he said, sitting across from me. Claire says it was an accident, but I don't believe her. I saw her face. His voice cracked, and my heart ached for him. He loved her, but he wasn't blind. I reached for his hand, my touch firm. William, you don't need to apologize. But you do need to decide what kind of marriage you want, one built on trust or one shadowed by games. He nodded, his jaw tight. I'll talk to her. But, Mother, what are you going to do? I smiled, a glint of mischief in my eyes. Oh, darling, I'll handle it my way. Don't worry. He didn't press, knowing better than to question me when I had that look. My plan was already in motion. Claire's messages had mentioned a promotion she was chasing at her law firm, one tied to a high-profile client dinner she was hosting in a week. I knew the firm's senior partner, Richard, from my own days in corporate circles. A quick call to him, framed as a casual catch-up, planted a seed. I hear Claire's hosting your big dinner, I said lightly. Quite the responsibility. I hope she's ready for the scrutiny. Richard chuckled, but I knew he'd watch her closely now. A single misstep could cost her the promotion. That evening, I invited Claire to the estate under the pretense of clearing the air. She arrived, her posture defensive, her smile forced. Eleanor, I'm so sorry about the dress, she began, her voice syrupy. It was an accident. I waved a hand, cutting her off. Claire, let's not play games. You made a choice, and I respect boldness, even if it's misguided. But understand this, I've spent decades protecting this family. If you want to be part of it, you'll need to earn it. Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. I handed her a small box. A peace offering, or so it seemed. Inside were the pearl earrings. Return to me. These were meant for family. I said softly. Keep them. Or don't. That's your choice. She took the box, her fingers trembling slightly. As she left, I knew she felt the weight of my words. I wasn't just the old hag she could dismiss. I was Eleanor Grayson, and I played the long game. The week after the wedding was a chess match. Each move deliberate. Claire's client dinner loomed, and I knew it was her chance to shine or falter. I didn't need to sabotage her. I only needed to amplify the pressure she'd already created. Richard, the senior partner, had taken my hint to heart, and I learned through Margaret that he'd asked Claire pointed questions about her readiness. Her confidence, already shaken by our encounter, was fraying. Meanwhile, William was grappling with his new reality. He came to me one evening, his eyes heavy with doubt. Mother, I love her, but I don't understand why she did it. She won't talk about it. I listened, my heart torn between wanting to shield him and knowing he had to face this truth. Love doesn't mean ignoring wrongs. William, I said gently. It means confronting them. Give her a chance to explain, but don't let her hide. He nodded, resolve settling in. I admired his strength, so like his father's, but I also knew Claire's actions had cracked something in him. I didn't push, though. My focus was on Claire, who was about to learn that consequences weren't always loud, they could be quiet, precise, and devastating. The night of the dinner, I attended as a guest, invited by Richard as a nod to our old friendship. The venue was sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Claire was in her element, charming clients with practiced ease, but I saw the strain in her smile. When she spotted me, her face paled. I raised my glass in a subtle toast, my expression neutral. She didn't know what I had planned, and that uncertainty was my first move. During the dinner, I struck up a conversation with one of the clients, a philanthropist named Evelyn who valued integrity above all. I mentioned, casually, how family dynamics could reveal character, how small actions, like a spilled glass of wine, could speak volumes. Evelyn's interest piqued, and she pressed for details. I shared just enough, framing it as a humorous anecdote, but I knew she'd carry the story back to Richard. Claire's reputation, so carefully curated, was now under a microscope. As the evening ended, Claire approached me, her voice low. What are you doing? Eleanor. I tilted my head, my smile serene. Just enjoying the evening. Dear, you've done well tonight. Let's hope it's enough. Her eyes flashed with anger, but she said nothing, turning back to her guests. I didn't need to do more. The seeds were planted, and Claire's own insecurities would do the rest. Back home, I reflected on my actions. Was I being cruel? No. I decided. I was teaching a lesson one Claire needed if she was to be part of this family. Respect wasn't owed. It was earned. And I wasn't done yet. The next phase of my plan involved William, and it would require all my wisdom to execute without breaking his heart. The fallout from the dinner was subtle but swift. Richard called me 2 days later, his tone guarded. Eleanor, Claire's competent, but there's talk about her temperament. Some clients felt she was overly calculated. I feigned surprise, planting another seed. Oh, I hope it's just nerves. She's young, after all. But I knew Richard's trust in her was shaken. The promotion wasn't guaranteed anymore. At home, William was quieter, his love for Claire warring with his growing doubts. I invited him for tea, sensing he needed to unburden himself. She admitted it wasn't an accident. He said finally, his voice raw. She said she felt trapped, like you were too involved in our lives. I sighed, my heart heavy. William, I've only ever wanted your happiness. If Claire feels threatened, that's her burden to carry, not yours. He looked at me, his eyes searching. What should I do? Mother. I took his hand, my voice steady. You talk to her. You set boundaries. And you decide what you can live with. It was the hardest advice I'd ever given him to face the possibility that his marriage might not be what he'd hoped. But I trusted his strength, just as he trusted mine. Claire, meanwhile, was unraveling. Margaret's updates revealed late-night calls to friends, venting about Eleanor's meddling and her fear of losing the promotion. I didn't relish her distress, but I felt no guilt. She had chosen this path when she threw that wine. My next move was riskier, but necessary. I reached out to Claire's mother, Diane, a kind woman I'd met at the engagement party. Over lunch, I shared my concerns not as accusations, but as a worried mother-in-law. I want Claire to thrive, I said, but her actions at the wedding, I'm not sure she's ready for this family. Diane was quiet, her face troubled. She's always been ambitious, she admitted. Sometimes too much. I nodded, planting the idea that Claire's behavior might need addressing. Diane promised to talk to her, and I knew that conversation would weigh heavily on Claire. A mother's words carried a unique kind of power. That evening, Claire called me, her voice trembling with anger. You're turning everyone against me, she accused. I kept my tone calm. Claire, I've done nothing but give you chances. If you feel cornered, look at your own actions. She hung up, but I knew she was rattled. My goal wasn't to destroy her, it was to make her see the cost of her choices. The tension in the Grayson household was palpable as weeks passed. William and Claire were trying to mend things, but her refusal to fully own her actions strained their bond. I stayed on the sidelines, offering William support but letting him navigate his marriage. My role wasn't to dictate his choices, but to ensure Claire understood that respect was non-negotiable. Then came the news: Claire didn't get the promotion. Richard cited concerns about maturity, a polite way of saying her reputation had taken a hit. She was devastated, and William told me she blamed me entirely. I wasn't surprised. Claire needed a villain, and I was the easiest target. But I wasn't done teaching her. I invited them both to dinner at the estate, framing it as a chance to move forward. Claire was wary, but William convinced her to come. The table was set with my finest china, a symbol of the family legacy I cherished. As we ate, I steered the conversation to shared memories of William's childhood, my late husband's kindness, the values that defined us. Claire was quiet, her eyes darting between us. After dessert, I handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter, written in my careful script. Read it later, I said softly. It was my final movie, a letter detailing not just the pain of her actions, but the love I still held for the family we could be. I wrote of forgiveness, but also of accountability. You're part of us now, I'd written, but that comes with responsibility. Choose wisely. Claire's hands shook as she took the envelope. William watched, his expression unreadable. I didn't know if my words would reach her, but I had done all I could. The rest was up to them. Months later, the air had shifted. Claire and William were still together, navigating their marriage with cautious steps. She hadn't apologized outright, but her actions spoke louder. She was kinder, more present, less guarded. The letter, William later told me, had shaken her. She'd read it alone, crying, realizing the weight of what she'd done. It wasn't a full redemption, but it was a start. I never replaced the dress. It hung in my closet, A reminder that even in pain, there was power in grace. I had protected my family, not with vengeance, but with truth. Claire had feared my payback, but what she got was something harder to face, a mirror held up to her choices. At William's birthday dinner, Claire approached me, her voice soft. "Eleanor, I'm trying." I smiled, placing a hand on her arm. "That's all I've ever asked." It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was hope. And for now, that was enough.